Tears off of your face, I'm sorry.
Looking back, 2020 was the year my life took a turn I never saw coming. Stuck at home with nothing to do, I drifted into the easiest escape I could find: screens. My days blurred into hours of YouTube, Looney Tunes, and eventually Instagram and other video games. Time felt endless, and I wasted it as if I had an infinite supply. On the surface, I was happy enough. I was doing really well on Rocket League, but in reality, I was stuck, comfortable but completely unsatisfied with how my life was going, and I wanted more. I just didn't know what that more was yet. The truth is, life doesn't just hand you what you want. Change usually comes with a lesson, or in my case, a painful moment that forces you to wake up. For me, it happened during something as simple as a push-up test. It was a regular day of online school, and I was logging into my PE class. And that's when my teacher dropped the surprise. We were going to be doing a push-up test today. Now, I wasn't worried. I'd played soccer for years, and I figured I was strong enough to crank out at least 30 push-ups. I started off feeling great, 5 reps in. I was super confident, but almost out of nowhere, my strength just disappeared. My arms felt super heavy, and I barely managed 13 push-ups. 13. I was embarrassed, sure, but what really hit me was disappointment. I thought all my years of being active, running, playing sports, staying fit, meant I was gonna be strong, and that number made it really clear that I wasn't what I thought I would be. Later that day, I decided to make one of the biggest changes I'd ever make in my life. I was going to do push-ups every day until I increased my strength and became a god at push-ups. That was my goal, right? And so I did start. I did 15 the first month every day, and then I bumped it up little by little, and within 6-7 months, I was doing 60 a day. And I continued to do this for another, year and a half, totaling 2 years. But one day I realized I was bored. I wasn't making any progress. I was working super hard on them, but it just didn't seem worth it anymore. So I gave up. And with that, the one thing that was giving me a purpose in my life, or it felt like it was gone, and I had to figure something else to do. Luckily, later that day, I fell back into my usual routine of aimless scrolling, and that's when I saw it, a thumbnail of a guy holding a full planche. At first, I thought it had to be fake. There was no way anyone can actually hold themselves like that. But curiosity got the better of me, and I clicked the video. It wasn't fake. Not only was the planche real, but it was one of the hardest skills in calisthenics, I found out. It required a lot of strength, control, and a lot of strength on the tendons. Something about that stuck with me, and before I knew it, I'd made myself a promise. One day, I'm going to hold the full planche, even if it's just for a second. The moment I made that promise, it felt like a switch flipped inside me. I was more motivated than I'd ever been, but I had no idea where to start. I did what anyone else does when they don't know something. I looked it up. I found my first planche tutorial, a short video that broke down the basics, straight arms, protraction, and core engagement. And it sounded simple enough, so I jumped right in with tuck planche attempts. They were terrible. I couldn't hold the position for more than a second, and my form sucked. But I kept at it. I practiced every other day, watched more videos, and slowly got better. About a month in, I had my first breakthrough. I finally figured out scapular protraction. It clicked when someone in a video said, "Push the ground down instead of pushing yourself up." And that little tip changed everything. With that progress, I moved on to the advanced tuck planche, thinking it would be a small step forward. It wasn't. The advanced tuck planche humbled me. It was so much harder than the tuck planche. Just a slight shift in my body angle made a huge difference, and I couldn't hold the position for more than a couple of seconds, and my protraction would completely collapse. So for weeks I felt stuck. My initial progress had come fast because my body wasn't used to the training, but now I was hitting a wall. And that's when I realized I couldn't just rely on skill practice. I needed strength, actual strength. So I went back to the tutorials I'd watched and I started adding, supplemental exercises. Pseudo planche push-ups, planche leans, and other skills of the sort. At first I hated them. They were boring, repetitive, and didn't feel as good as practicing the actual skill. But I stuck with it. My training became more, structured. I'd warm up with planche leans, arm circles, and my main session focused on, holds, advanced tuck holds, planche leans, and tuck planche holds when I got too tired. And I'd end with a few rounds of supplemental work just to finally push a little further. To keep myself motivated, I made edits of my progress using songs that I loved. I'd leave the second half of each edit blank, waiting for the day I could finally land the planche and finish it. And you will not be seeing these edits on YouTube anytime.
We'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
For a while, this plan worked. I started seeing progress again, but eventually things slowed down. It felt like no matter how hard I trained, I wasn't getting anywhere. Frustration built up, and I finally gave in. I stopped training. A month passed, and I avoided anything related to calisthenics. But one day, I stumbled across one of my old progress edits. And watching those clips, seeing how far I'd come, it sparked something in me, right? I remembered why I started. And you could say that fire reignited, and I knew I couldn't give up. I decided to try something different. For years, I trained the same way, taking off my shoes before every session in order to feel lighter and more agile. But this time, I kept them on. It wasn't a random choice. I knew the added weight would make every movement harder, every hold more challenging. My logic, though, was pretty simple. Train with weight, and when you remove that weight, things feel a lot easier. So for months, I trained with my shoes on. It was super frustrating. At first, it was really difficult, right? Skills I'd grown comfortable with felt difficult again. But over time, I started to see the benefits. My advanced tuck planche became stronger, my holds longer, and my form a lot better. And so one day, I decided to take my shoes off just to see how I was doing. I wasn't expecting much, but when I held my first ever straddle planche, I felt something I hadn't experienced before. Lightness. It wasn't just holding the position. I was floating. It was like I had unlocked a new level in a video game. And that moment felt amazing. Something as small as keeping my shoes on during training had made such a massive difference. And even now, when I train with shoes, I can barely manage a 3-4 second straddle planche, but without them, I can hold a full planche for around, 5 seconds on a good day. If you've never tried training with or without shoes, experiment. You might surprise yourself. And so after that, I stuck with the straddle planche training. My progress was slow, but pretty steady, and my hips stopped piking as much, and I started feeling more in control. But one problem remained. My legs refused to straighten. At first I thought it was a strength issue. Maybe my quads or core weren't strong enough. But after months of frustration and tweaking, I realized the truth. It wasn't strength holding me back. It was my flexibility. Flexibility had never been part of my training. When I started working out, it wasn't something I thought I needed. My focus was always on, strength, getting stronger, holding the planche longer, and, pushing past that. But as I progressed to straddle planche, I was hitting a wall, and I knew it, right? The problem wasn't just holding the position, it was making it look clean. My knees would kind of bend, creating this awkward angled straddle that didn't really count, and it looked pretty ugly. It wasn't just frustrating, it was demoralizing. I was strong enough to hold the position, but it still didn't look right. Around this time, I stumbled upon a video by Geek Climber about the pancake fold, and watching that video was a sort of wake-up call for me. It made me realize that if I wanted to progress, I needed to start training flexibility, specifically the side splits. Flexibility training was a completely different thing. It wasn't like calisthenics or weightlifting, where discomfort felt productive. This was pain. It was sharp, it was deep, and it was terrible. Lowering inch by inch into a stretch felt agonizing, and warming up my hips just to attempt the side split, that was a workout in itself, I'm not even gonna lie. But I did stick with it. Every session I pushed myself a little bit further. Progress was slow, painful, but it was progress. And over time, my flexibility started to improve. I didn't achieve full splits yet, but I am getting close. And as my flexibility improved, so did my straddle planche. My knees stopped bending as much and my form became cleaner. And before I knew it, I was holding straddle planche for 10, even 15 seconds at a time. But as I grew more comfortable in straddle, I started to want something new. I wanted a new experience. Straddle planche had become routine. It wasn't exciting anymore. I wanted a bigger challenge. In hindsight, this would have been the perfect time to start training planche presses or push-ups, but for whatever reason, I didn't. I don't know why. To this day, I still can't do either of them. But one day, while training at the park with a friend, I decided to go for a full planche on my tall parallettes. I wasn't expecting much, but to my shock, I held it for about a second. It wasn't perfect. My hips were slightly piked, and my form could have been better. But that 1 second hold was enough to reignite my motivation. I started training full planche regularly, adding it to my sessions once or twice a week. Every small improvement felt monumental. It was crazy. My hold times went from 1 to 2 to 3, then 5 seconds. The skill that had inspired my entire journey was finally ready to be done. Ready, like I was doing it. But when I finally achieved my full planche, something unexpected happened. I wasn't happy. For years, I had convinced myself that this was it, the moment that would make everything I was working for worth it. I thought achieving the full planche would bring me fulfillment, satisfaction, maybe even a sense of pride. But instead, I felt empty. The moment wasn't a celebration, it was more like, okay, I did it, now what? And that realization hit me hard. The feeling that I was still unhappy with myself, even though I could planche, was disappointing. I always thought that once I achieved the goal, I would be, ecstatic. It would have been an amazing feeling. But it was kind of sad for me to see that it wasn't the case. I wanted more. And so the moment that I realized I could planche wasn't a celebration like I thought it would be, like I said before. And since then, I've been learning to appreciate my progress and be grateful to my past self for what I've done. Not in a I'm the best ever way, but more with a sense of pride and excitement that I actually pulled through on what I said I would do. My planche isn't perfect, and I don't know how long it will take to reach it. Maybe it's not possible even. Who knows? I'm just a guy who's able to achieve the skill that he really wanted to do, and is now chasing progress in more than one skill, right? So I'd like to finish this video with some advice. Appreciate your progress when you see it. Try not to brush it off as nothing. Acknowledge and observe it. I definitely wish I did that, as I don't think I would have quit quite so many times if I did. It would have made the journey a lot more fun and probably even quicker. I would also say to record yourself. I wish I had more clips of when I was just starting out, but I deleted most of them because I wasn't happy with something in the video, right? But now I realize that my imperfections back then weren't a bad thing. They just show me how far I've come since then. So use your videos to improve your form and hold time, and don't get rid of them. You have the opportunity to use this journey to grow and reflect. So don't get rid of the evidence that you did so. Maybe even you can make trash edits of yourself on YouTube one day. For so long, I'd placed my happiness in the future in this one goal, but when I got there, I realized that happiness didn't come from achieving the thing. It came from being on the journey and working towards something that gave me a purpose. And so since then, I've learned to reflect on my progress and appreciate the steps I've taken to get there. It's not about being perfect or reaching some destination, right? It's about acknowledging how far you've come and being proud of the effort it took to get there. I started this journey as a teenager who couldn't hold a tuck planche. Now I'm this guy holding the skill of his dreams, and it hasn't been easy, but it's 100% been worth it. So I really hope that video was helpful for you. If you want to start learning the planche, look up some tutorials. I promise you, it's a great experience. It's very hard, but so worth it. So hopefully you took something from this video, and I'll see you in the next one.